The room was completely still. Over 200 journalists sat watching as Donald Trump took verbal shots at Canada. Mark Carney didn't move a muscle. No expression, no reaction, just silence. When the press secretary said, "Last question," everyone assumed it was over. But then, Carney slowly raised his hand, and with one single question, he turned Trump's face pale. Carney knew something no one else in that room did, and the world was about to find out. The Roosevelt Room at the White House was usually reserved for official visits and polite diplomacy. But today was different. Around the long table in the center, the futures of two nations were supposed to be discussed, or at least, that was the idea. Carney had arrived early that morning. His navy blue suit was flawless, his tie straight, his posture calm. There wasn't the slightest sign of stress. The Canadian team was small, 4 advisors and the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Trump's group, on the other hand, filled the room. 12 people, all armed with notebooks and tablets. The message was clear. America wanted to show who held the power. The press conference was scheduled for the afternoon, but rumors had been spreading since early morning. Trump's staff had been cold toward the Canadians. They hadn't even offered them coffee. In the waiting room, Carney's advisors exchanged uneasy glances, but he stayed relaxed, scrolling through his emails as if it were just another workday. White House Press Secretary Kay Morrison stepped up to the podium. She was about 40, with sharp eyes and dark hair, a veteran of Washington's toughest briefings. She adjusted the mic and began with her usual professional tone. President Trump and Prime Minister Carney met today to discuss trade relations between our two countries. The president will now speak. Trump walked up slowly, hands in his pockets, shoulders tight, his expression. Essien was familiar, confident, confrontational, and ready to prove something. At first, his words sounded diplomatic. He spoke about the long friendship between the U.S. and Canada. But soon his tone shifted. "Of course," he said, "like in every relationship, there are imbalances. Some countries take advantage of favorable positions. Some exploit our resources through unfair trade." The reporters immediately perked up. This was classic Trump. A polite opening followed by an attack. Carney didn't flinch. His hands rested calmly on his knees, his back straight, eyes locked on Trump. He didn't move, didn't blink, didn't speak. Trump went on. He pointed out that 75% of Canadian exports went to the U.S. A true figure, but his story was one-sided. He left out how much America relied on Canada for aluminum, steel, energy, and lumber. Journalists scribbled notes. Some nodded, others frowned. Sitting beside Carney, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly frowned slightly, but Carney stayed still. He was listening carefully, just not responding, not yet. Trump's tone grew harsher. "Some say Canada's our best friend," he said. "Maybe, but friendship doesn't mean one-sided sacrifice. We've given them markets, security, technology. What have we received? Tariff walls and constant complaints." Even American reporters started shifting uncomfortably. This was no longer a polite criticism. It was an insult. Still, Carney remained motionless. His eyes fixed on Trump, but his expression was unreadable, almost distant. After 20 minutes, Trump wrapped up his speech. Morrison returned to the podium. "We'll now take questions," she said. "Please state your name and organization." Hands shot up immediately. CNN, Reuters, Associated Press. Morrison pointed to CNN. "Mr. President," the reporter asked, "what specific steps will you take to reduce the trade deficit with Canada?" Trump replied with his usual talking points: tariffs, new deals, tough negotiations. The next questions followed, and his answers stayed the same. Carney still said nothing. After 45 minutes, Morrison began to close the session. "We'll take one final question," she said, pointing to a journalist at the back. But then, from the middle of the room, a hand slowly rose. Mark Carney's hand. The room froze. Prime ministers don't ask questions at press conferences. That's not how it works. But Carney kept his hand up. Cameras turned toward him. Morrison hesitated, then looked at Trump. Trump frowned, but gave a small nod. Permission granted. "Prime Minister Carney," Morrison said, extending a microphone. "Go ahead." Carney stood up, straightened his jacket, and looked directly at Trump. For a few seconds, he said nothing. Then he spoke. "Mr. President," he asked calmly, "if Canada is so insignificant, why did you call me 14 times last month asking for energy deals?" The silence was deafening. 200 journalists held their breath. Trump's confident look vanished. His face went pale, then red with anger. He tried to speak, but couldn't. Carney's tone stayed steady. No arrogance, no anger, just facts. 14 calls, Mr. President, 8 directly from you, 6 from your Energy Secretary, Jennifer Granholm, all about one issue, America's urgent need for natural gas this winter, because without Canada's 3 billion cubic meters of natural gas per day, 35% of U.S. homes will go through the winter without heat. Trump tried to turn on his mic, but Carney continued. Your aluminum production stops within a month without Canada. Your steel plants shut down without Ontario's iron ore. Your auto industry can't build a single car without parts from Quebec. And your electrical grid, from New York to Michigan, collapses without the 12 gigawatts of electricity we send you every day. Cameras zoomed in. Journalists frantically took notes. Trump's face had gone completely white. His lips were tight. He had no comeback. Because every word Carney said was true. Morrison panicked and tried to cut the mic, but Carney wasn't finished. So, Mr. President, he said, his voice calm, before calling Canada insignificant, maybe ask yourself this. How long could America survive without Canada? He paused. The answer is simple. Not very long. Then Carney placed the mic down and sat back in his chair. The silence was thick. Then, from the back came a single clap, then another. Within seconds, dozens joined in. A third of the journalists were applauding, something that had never happened in a White House press event before. Trump stood frozen at the podium, his face bright red. He tried to speak, but nothing came out. Morrison quickly stepped forward. This concludes the briefing. Thank you. The cameras went off, but the journalists didn't move. They were already on their phones, posting clips and tweets. Within minutes, it was trending worldwide. Carney destroys Trump in 14 words. Videos spread. News articles exploded. Canadian networks like CBC and CTV ran it non-stop. American outlets stayed quiet, but social media didn't. That evening, Trump posted on Truth Social, had a great meeting with Canada, deals coming soon, but no one believed it. The next morning, the Canadian Parliament gave Carney a standing ovation. His words were replayed on every news channel. In Washington, Republican senators avoided the topic. Democrats, however, quietly celebrated. Carney had said what many of them had wanted to say for years. The data backed him up. America truly did rely on Canada. Trump's tough talk couldn't hide that dependency anymore. For the first time, the world saw Canada not as quiet and polite, but as powerful and essential. And Mark Carney had shown that power with just one question. That press conference wasn't just another political event. It became a historic moment. Carney proved how powerful silence could be. He didn't speak for 47 minutes, but the one question he finally asked changed everything. And now a question for you. Have you ever seen a moment like that? A time when silence spoke louder than words, when one question turned everything upside down. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you're fascinated by these kinds of global power plays, leadership strategies, and behind-the-scenes diplomacy, make sure you subscribe to Maple Flash. We dive deep into stories you won't hear anywhere else. Turn on notifications, because the game of international politics never truly ends. And one last question. Do you think Carney's bold move was the right strategy for Canada's future? Or did challenging Trump open the door to bigger tensions ahead? Tell us what you think in the comments, because this story is far from over.